see some people. We have people. Hello, everybody. Welcome to ClickHouse Cloud live updates for July. And we've got people from all over the world. So I'm currently in Prague. So where's everybody else? Let us know in the chat where you are. We've got Kelly is here. Where are you, Kelly,
I'm in
today?
San Diego, California. Hi,
San
everybody.
Diego. We've got Turkey, Ramazan in Turkey. Riyadh, where are you? Riyadh's going to be speaking today.
Hi everyone, I'm in Barcelona, Spain. It's a very hot and sunny day, so you cannot hear it, but I have the fan runnings here.
Nice. We've got Denver, someone from Florida. Florida. Is Florida hot? That should be hot. In my head, that's
Probably
hot.
very hot. Yeah.
And then we've got Gareth as well. Where are you, Gareth? Where about you in America as well, somewhere?
Yeah, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it is hot and humid today.
Hmm. If I was in London, it would be raining, but I've escaped it. Cool. So we've got people from sort of all over the place. So we're gonna give people a few minutes to join, and then we're gonna get started. So I think I think it might be you. Well, obviously you're all on Zoom, but I think we've got a YouTube link as well. Let me see if I can see and find that as well in case you want to watch it back afterwards. Let's just paste that in. And let's see, where's everybody? Cool. So what do you reckon? I reckon maybe we can get started. So we've got if you have any questions, if you're on YouTube, obviously just answer questions in the YouTube chat. If you're with us on the Zoom, you can either ask those in the chat or you can ask those in the Q&A. Kelly and I are collecting all the questions and we will either ask them rather, or we'll try and answer them if we can answer them. Either at the end, if it's a general question or if it's related to whoever's talking, we'll try and wait for a little gap and sneak our way in. So apart from that, so our first talk is going to be by Gareth, and he's going to be taking us through the revamp of the ClickHouse Cloud console. So I guess Gareth, do you want to share your screen? So and then we'll hand over to you. There we go. I can see it. So I think we're good. Cool.
All right, brilliant. Okay, so I am Gareth, and I do design here at ClickHouse. Today I'm going to give you a bit of a kind of a peek behind the scenes of how we rebuilt the ClickHouse Cloud console. And the way we're going to do this is, let me get this going. Really quickly, I'm going to run through the history of kind of why we're creating it. Then we're going to talk about what were we building, how we built it, and then very quickly at the end, I'll talk through the rollout process and finally some of the results we've seen. So let's jump straight on in. Okay, so given the history and me specifically, I joined ClickHouse in February of 2022. And at the time, we did not have a cloud product. We had some designs from an agency, but it wasn't really the direction that we wanted to go in. So I got down to work pretty quick, producing designs and prototypes for all of our core areas. And by May, we kind of had a usable product. And we actually started our private preview around there. So initially there was, I think about 30-ish companies, and we had individual Slack channels for each of these companies, which was fantastic for me because I got a lot of user feedback there, and there was a lot of ideas being shared, a lot of really good conversations from our early adopters. So we continued through that year, as you see here, kind of building out different areas, monitoring and kind of these services themselves. And then after adding billing capabilities and other table stake functionality, we released our beta at the end of the around, I think, late autumn in the fall of that year. And things were going really well. But in my mind, there were kind of these two issues that kept kind of plaguing me. The first one was that due to the speed that we were releasing at, we weren't really able to implement a design system. Now, at that time, we were pretty lucky. There was only me on the design side, so one designer and 3 front-end developers. So things remained fairly consistent anyway. But we knew that it wasn't going to last, especially as we kind of added new members to our team and we grew. Now, the second problem was something that myself and the head of product, Tanya, would talk about quite a lot. And that is that we built this system for managing ClickHouse in the cloud. However, we still didn't have a way of really easily interacting, allowing people to interact with the data that they were putting in there. So we needed a web-based SQL client. And as luck would have it, in late 2022, we got one by joining forces with Archetype. And with the Archetype acquisition, our users now had access to a state-of-the-art, top-quality SQL experience. And the Archetype team did a fantastic job of skinning their product to match the visual design of the existing cloud product. And we were able to tie all of this together in time for our GA launch in December of that year. So it was a massive success. However, once the dust settled on this, we quickly realized that we had a new problem. So as mentioned, the team had done a fantastic job of updating the SQL console. However, navigation and state management between the two UIs wasn't particularly easy. There were 2 different code bases, and more problematically, we had our cloud console, which had been built using Angular, and we had the SQL console, which was built in React. So if we wanted to achieve this cohesive modern experience that I had been envisioning from the start, we were going to have to make some tough decisions. So moving on. So what are we building? So what was the vision here? So as I mentioned, my dream is always to have this seamless and cohesive experience between the management of ClickHouse services, like the scaling, the user management, the billing, that sort of thing, and interacting with the actual data. And for that, we needed to build a single UI. So after much internal discussion, we decided to proceed using React. And this was no small decision because it meant moving away from the code base that I just talked about, that we spent the entirety of 2022 building. And it also meant retraining some of the developers that we brought on specifically to write Angular. But we felt that this was worth it. The single unified UI would allow us to increase the visibility of the SQL console and improve its engagement. We also knew that as this single UI would improve the platform consistency and fix those navigation issues that I mentioned before. And also, as 2 experiences would become one, we were pretty confident that we could improve our onboarding experience and that it would become a lot more streamlined. And then finally, there's all the benefits that come from simplifying the tech stack. Okay, so the opportunity we were looking at is, by this point, I'd had a year to think about exactly how I would like the product design to function. And I knew to be successful and consistent in the future, we needed to implement a strong design system and really make that part of our culture. And by then, I brought on a second designer, and we'd met up with the front-end devs at an offsite, and we kind of agreed on a vision going forward. So putting the technological constraints to one side for just a moment, I felt, and I still do feel, that we have a real opportunity in our industry. The quality of product design for database management systems is okay, but it's generally not fantastic. And we knew at ClickHouse that we already had this special database that was so much faster and a lot better than almost anything out there already. And if we could marry that with an impressive UI, then the sky would be the limit for us. So there was just a lot we can get done there, and our aspirations were greater than just producing a good UI for a great database. For me, I personally wanted to set an incredibly high bar for craftsmanship and to make a name for ClickHouse as having the best experience in the industry and really pushing the envelope on what's possible. And above all, I think all of us, when we met at that offsite, we kind of looked at each other and we wanted to create something that we were all really proud of. And so those were kind of the core of why we do what we were doing. So onto the inspiration that we took, and for me, I took, we took inspiration from many places. I personally have an addiction to SaaS products, and so I'm constantly having to explain to my wife why I have all these $8 per month bills coming out of our bank account. And so even within there, though, there's a few that stood out to me. And the first one being Campsite. This is a design tool. I like the left navigation there is easy to do. It's themable and it's unopinionated. And being unopinionated is very important for design tools in particular, because you want the user content to really come forward and do the work here. And you kind of want the Chrome to be in the background. After that, I got Vercel and PlanetScale. I kind of grouped them together because they're very similar UIs. They have a top navigation that I'm not a huge fan of, but the actual UI and the details that are in the UI, the use of the white or the empty space is fantastic in these products, and they're of course themable. Snowflake is another one. Again, we've got that. Go back to that left navigation. Snowflake's went with their snow site went really consistent, heavy on consistency. Actually, in talking to people, heard that often they found it overly consistent to the point of utilitarianism. So we don't want to get too far that way, but it's still a really nice UI. They actually have inbuilt branding as well, so obviously you see their colors and stuff. Unfortunately, theirs is not themable, probably because of the branding element. And then the final one for me was kind of Linear, and I don't know if you're into kind of product development and design, like Linear kind of changed the game when they came along kind of 4 or 5 years ago. Fully themable. Really, every attention to detail is fantastic in this. And they also have this idea of accessibility through user settings. And when I say that, I mean through their themes. You can do high contrast color modes through their themes for visual accessibility, and also kind of changing the font size and that sort of thing. So took all of that inspiration and came out of it with what the aesthetic that we wanted to have. So we were looking at clean. We wanted it light in perceived weight. We wanted it to get out of the way and allow your kind of data, all of that data to take the forefront. We wanted it to be themable, and we wanted it to be predictable and accessible as well. So all of those together, we came up with this initial proposal. And I won't go through too much here, but it's very similar. You might see some similarities to what we kind of just went through on the inspiration. There's the left navigation where everything begins on the left. We got it's fully themable. So if you can't see because Zoom's kind of weird with the color, I can jump over here. But it's fully themable, and that allows us to kind of build in our brand, especially in the dark ones. You can see the colors, allows the yellow to really pop, and makes it clear that you're working in the ClickHouse environment. It's unopinionated, even though there is the branding, it is unopinionated. It does put your data first. And we're working on getting that accessibility through the user settings, as I mentioned, is so strong at Linear. So now we knew kind of like what we wanted to build. The next thing was how we're going to build it. And so running through this really quickly, I did quite a lot of research on how some of the more modern techniques for UI development, and came across a workflow that would really enable us to produce high quality, consistent UIs with very few bugs that operate at a rapid pace. It does require really tight integration between the product design and the development teams, but that is generally how I like to work anyway. So I consider that a plus. So bearing in mind that we already, as you saw, we already had a core set of designs and some workflows already laid out. The overall flow looks a little bit like this. The first step, design a core set of components in Figma. The second step is to add design tokens, export them from Figma as JSON files, and convert them to CSS variables. Don't worry, I will go into depth on these steps in a moment. The third step being using those variables that we've just produced to style our custom React components, and then publish that as an NPM package. And then the fourth step is being able to import that back into our cloud code base and use it to rebuild the cloud UI. Cool. So as I say, we'll jump into a little bit of depth. The first step of designing these components, so we got to work and started putting all these in Figma. There's I think about 30, 35 components in there now, but we're adding more all of the time. As you see here, there's alerts, badges, buttons, cards, flyouts, dialogues, bit of everything here. All of these were designed in Figma, but we do not use hard values for anything from the color or like we wouldn't say border radius 4 pixels. Instead, we use these design tokens. So really quickly, what are design tokens? Well, they're variables that we can use to tie in to themes or to settings. In this example, we have this token at the top, which is global color background default. And basically, if I'm writing CSS, normally if I want a white background, I might say background equals white or FFF. In this case, I could say background equals global color background default. And now what that does is that the value of this token can actually change depending on which theme you're using. So in this example, we've got this light theme here. In the light theme, it might be using this token here, which is palette neutral 0, which might actually equal white. It could also reference this one here, which is the dark theme, which is the palette neutral black, which might actually map to a black color. And then we might have a crazy theme, which is palette danger 500, and that could be a red background. So basically, we can really easily add more themes and change things. And it's not just colors. As I say, it's button radius and stuff like that. Anything can be changed here. So it allows us to add those themes that, as I was mentioning, is really important when I think about accessibility and that sort of thing. Also, while we were developing this, we were also maintaining our current UI. So we actually had a theme that was called our classic theme that maintained the older UI, which was more kind of purpley and orange. So and it had, again, different size buttons and different fonts. So we were able to use this to continue to support our old classic UI while building the new one at the same time. Creating the design tokens, I was able to do this using a fantastic Figma plugin called Token Studio. And I created every token from everything from color to border width to radius, font size, spacing, pretty much anything you can think of became a design token. We've got over 1,200 of these, and it's continuing to grow every day. The great thing about this tool is that it then converts everything to JSON, as you can see here. And then you can export it. And so moving on, in order to actually take the JSON that you saw here and create these CSS variables, we found this tool from Amazon actually called Amazon Style Dictionary, sorry. And they allow us to convert the JSON into CSS variables. And as you can see, if you squint, you can see some of these tokens get pretty long in names. As they need to be really specific. So I previously worked at a company where we created our own React component library, and it was fantastic, but it was time consuming and it was a lot of work. And we ended up actually needing dedicated designers and engineers to maintain the project. And that was also like 6 years ago or something. And since then, the React ecosystem has really expanded. And so rather than roll our own component library, or framework, we decided to build upon an existing one. And the finalists were Chakra and Radix. And it was close, but we ended up choosing Radix, mainly because of its built-in accessibility and its styling flexibility, which matched our needs a lot. So we built the majority of our components on top of Radix. And as we did that, we ensured that when styling them, we only used our CSS variables. And as previously mentioned, this enables us to update the different themes as we go. Okay, so the collection, jumped a bit there. The collection of UI components we call ClickUI. You can go, I put the link here. We open sourced it because everything at ClickHouse is open source. It's in our DNA. We created a storybook for it, which we use for testing and documentation, and we published the NPM package too. And now once we had the NPM package, we were able to import all of our components. As you see this code at the top, we were able to import all of our components back into our ClickHouse Cloud Code base. As we said, allow us to be responsive, themable, accessible. But because we're using our component library, if we do find bugs, we can fix it at the component level, and it fixes it throughout the cloud UI. So we generally have less bugs, and it allows us to design and develop a lot faster. All right, so that's what we built, why we built it. And so really quickly, because I know I am getting really high on time. The rollout for the rollout, we rolled out over the course of a month. We kind of went 20% of users, then the next week another 20%, the next week another 20, and then the final week 40. Rather than migrate individual users, we moved entire teams or organizations, so everybody there had the same. There's no kind of jarring thing depending on where you are. We also, one big thing was we did not allow users to revert. We didn't give them a button saying go back to classic view or anything like that. And this meant that we had to be very responsive to bug reports and to support issues as they came up. And I think we did have 2 or 3 users who did ask to revert, but we were able to fix their bugs quickly and resolve their issues, so it didn't become a problem. We also kept a really close eye on conversion and error metrics throughout the rollout. And if we saw a drop somewhere where we didn't expect, then we kind of paused, we investigated, and we rolled out improvements if we could, and then we continued with the rollout. So that enabled us to kind of get everything out there without seeing any major drops in any of our kind of main KPIs. And then so finally the results. Well, in the end, it took a lot longer than we wanted it to take. I think from the first designs to the completed implementation was about 15 months. The development time was only about half of that. There was a lot of upfront design work, as you probably saw, creating those components, thinking through all the workflows and that sort of thing took a lot of time. We got the unified experience that we set out to achieve, and ended up with a predictable navigation. So we're happy about that. We've actually seen the usage of the SQL console increase since the relaunch. Again, makes us happy. There's a reduction in the UI and console errors and faster design and development time. So it's all been positive. We are still working on polishing and improving the UI. I'm happy to take questions. Or if you want to kind of hit me up, you can find me in the public ClickHouse Slack. Just search for Gareth, I'll be there. Or you can find me on Twitter, X, Gareth at David. Good luck remembering how to spell that. But yeah, that's about it. So thank you for your time. Hope some of that was useful. And I will hand over. I think Riyadh, you're up next, right?
Let's see if we get any questions. I think there's usually a slight delay, but yeah, thanks for presenting that. It's cool. I was trying to think of some things that I had questions about. Like, so you said you got like more people using it. Did you get feedback from people on how once it switched over to the new one, like what they thought, like which bits they liked the best?
Yeah, I think so. Again, similar to our private preview and beta periods, we had Slack channels set up, individual Slack channels. So we were getting really good feedback from our initial kind of wave of users. Yeah, a lot of people were. I think mostly people were just impressed with the SQL console and bringing the visibility of the SQL console and kind of having everything woven around the SQL console and the ability to kind of be in the SQL console and say, oh, hang on, I need to scale up my service, and being able to scale up the service, jump back to doing what you were doing in the SQL console. We also rolled out some AI. We also rolled out kind of an AI copilot as well, which I think went down really well with our users around the same time. So yeah, there was a lot of positives there.
Cool. We got one question from the chat. So was Archetype built in-house or open source? I think you did explain that, but yeah, let's do it again.
No, I didn't actually. Archetype
Okay.
were they added to, I think initially, is there anyone from Archetype on the call? I don't believe they were open source, and our cloud repo is currently private. But we're also with an idea of one day all of our kind of pull requests and stuff like that are kind of written with an idea that one day we'd like to open source it, but that isn't my decision, unfortunately. That's something for the future, I think.
But I think you did say, like, did you say the Click UI? That's people could get that.
Yeah, ClickUI is totally open source. So you can go and I'll post a link if nobody's done it already. I'll post a link in the chat and you can go and import that into your React projects, and whether it's Next.js or Gatsby or anything like that, you can import that and get going pretty quick.
I think I found it. I might have beaten you to it. Yeah, and then the other comment was awesome work. So that's cool. I think those are all the questions we've got though. So as you said, let's move on to part 2. We did have another question which was about the support UI, but we've kind of take that offline and talked about like that's already something that's being worked on, like how to make that, I guess, more intuitive and more useful for people when they get stuck on stuff. But we'll so yeah, I guess follow along these updates, and hopefully we'll have one in the future where we'll show you that. But for now, the next thing we're going to look at is ClickPipes. So ClickPipes is kind of built into the ClickHouse Cloud console, and it makes it super easy for you to import your data from various sources, streaming sources, or sort of data at rest. And so Riyadh's going to be showing us some of the new things that have been introduced here. So I guess Riyadh, you maybe share your screen, and then we'll let you take over.
Thanks, Mark and Garrett, for the great presentation. Hi, everyone. I'm Riyadh. I'm in charge of our integrations here at ClickHouse. And in this scope, which is actually fairly large, there's like literally thousands of integrations with the database like ClickHouse. There's one family of integrations that's a bit special. We refer to as ClickPipes. It's because we don't think of ClickPipes as a kind of software you run, but more as a service we offer. In that sense, it extends our cloud offering pretty nicely with a custom ETL with a single destination. So we know how to write to ClickHouse efficiently, and we try to provide this experience as a service, part of our cloud offering. So it allows you to connect to multiple data sources. Initially, we started focusing on Kafka as the main data source because of the sheer amount of demand we got for it, but we extended fairly quickly. And for today's presentation, which is actually mostly a demo, I decided to pick a theme to make it a bit more fun and interactive. And the theme is Amazon Web Services integrations. So we recently added a few of Amazon-specific integrations, namely object storage with continuous S3, Kafka with Amazon flavor of Kafka, which is MSK, and Amazon native streaming capabilities with Kinesis. And these 3 components are kind of the major data platforms in the Amazon ecosystem, meaning that everything can somehow be exported in one of these 3 formats, very often natively, like things like DynamoDB, for example, support exporting a CDC stream to Kinesis, other systems as well. You can kind of plug multiple components together and build a pipeline in Amazon Web Services fairly easily. And that's why we wanted to put this offering out there, is because we know that a lot of our users are building on top of Amazon Web Services. It means that also we have a good integration with that from a security perspective, obviously, with credentials and IAM role impersonation as well. Schema registry for Kafka and MSK. We released recently a new offset selector for our Kafka experience. And a feature I'm pretty excited about, and that will show actually right away, is our continuous mode for S3. So what we mean by continuous mode? It's actually fairly simple. So as you can see here on the screen, I have an empty S3 bucket. So not very exciting. If I refresh, nothing is in there. But hopefully on another screen you cannot see, I have a terminal where I can run a small script that generates files and push them to this bucket. So if I refresh now, should be able to see this repository here in my bucket with objects. I have 5 of them now, and my script on my desktop keeps pushing these every 10 seconds. A new file gets added in with 1.5 megabytes of data. And this kind of simulates a continuous export pipeline, or think of it as a kind of staging area. Maybe your Firehose job is doing that. Maybe a custom script is running export statements from your Redshift deployment. Who knows? But you can turn a bucket into a staging area fairly easily with this approach. So I'm already at 11 files. So let's start ingesting some of these. So it's an opportunity also to show the UI that Garrett was talking about. And ClickPipes lives under data sources, and we can just set up a ClickPipe. So let me pick S3 for this. Give it a name. Let's call it Cloud Live S3, for example. Let me provide some credentials to my bucket here. I hopefully saved beforehand. And let me just copy actually the URL of this bucket here and paste it in the ClickPipes UI. I use double wildcard here to match everything in the bucket as well as in the subfolders if there's any. In the next step, we're gonna basically visit the bucket to see if there's files. Okay, we find some files there, and we can enable what we refer to as continuous ingestion. So by default, it's just a one-off. We load everything we discovered in the bucket, or you can just flip the switch and turn it into a continuous job where every minute we look for new files and ingest them as well, literally turning it into a staging area. I won't call it streaming because it's different from a streaming use case, but it has this kind of near real-time capabilities baked into it. You'll notice that by default, we skip files that are larger than 1 GB because in continuous mode, it defeats a bit the purpose of the feature to really load huge files. So we really recommend users to split files in smaller chunks. However, these are default values. We can always override them if you need to do it. Same goes for the refresh frequency, by the way. And the next step, what we do is open one of these files, load up a sample there, and run our schema inference here. So let me call the destination table S3 demo, for example. And this is what we inferred, actually, based on the data types we have. We have a nested, some integer, and some strings here. You can overwrite everything. You can decide, okay, I want to order this by fixed and key. In that case, this is synthetic data, but it will work with any data set. You can also decide to use more custom structures or default values here. In the next step, you decide the permissions you give to this ingestion job. So in this case, I'll give it full access to my database, and that's it. I completed the setup. It took me, 20 to 30 seconds to basically fill the form. What we do first is that we fetch for the bucket. My bucket is still being populated, by the way. Let's get back to it and refresh. In demo live, now I have 44 files. It's still fetching it. While it's fetching, let's explore a bit the UI actually. So you have the SQL console here where you can run your queries. You have your backup management. You have a pretty nice monitoring screen with all the metrics related to your service. And something I'm pretty excited about is the new integrations catalog that's built in the feature. So you'll find all your favorite integration here, including ClickPipes itself, our language clients, things that helps you ingest data in there or visualize data. It's a pretty interactive experience, and you can use it right in the product. So let me go back now to my data source. It's now running, and it's already ingested 8.3 megabytes of data. We can see data that's already in the table, and it have 4.8 million records that landed in my S3 demo table. If I get malformed data or one file does not conform to the schema we inferred earlier on, it will land in this sidecar table called the same name of your destination table _ ClickPipes errors here. Hopefully I don't have any errors, so my data is basically pretty homogeneous. And I already ingested 5.5 million rows. So my script is still pushing files. I'm still ingesting it. So while it's doing that, let's display another integration scenario with another type of ClickPipes, which is MSK. MSK is Amazon's.
Yeah, can I ask you a quick question about the
Yes.
S3 one? So
Please go ahead.
the names, I was most curious about the names of the files. So if you add a new file, does the name of the file relevant? Like if I just made up a name, will it pick it up, or does it have to have a ascending or descending name greater than the ones you've already seen?
Yeah, that's a great question. We were going to get back to it later, but since you asked now, don't worry, it's a good question. So basically, in order to pick up the new files, we rely on the ordering of the files by name. So the lexicographical ordering matters. So in that case, you'll see that my scripts put that timestamp first, which allows me basically to have this natural ordering of the data. The reason we do that is it's the only optimized way to pull files from S3, giving the endpoints the API exposes. The other alternative will require us to do full scans on every fetch, which can turn into a very expensive operation and also will render it very slow depending on the scale you want to operate at. So yeah, good question. Actually, lexicographical order matters here.
And then in those files, I think you effectively have like a bit of JSON on each line, like one line, one JSON object. Is that the
Yeah, that's the
structure?
ND JSON format. We support things
Cool.
like Parquet and other formats as well. If you don't see your format there, just let us know. It's actually fairly easy for us to extend the list of formats because we rely on ClickHouse construct to do it, and it's just a matter of exposing it for us.
And then we got a question. I might as well answer it now. We're on the from the chat. So it
Let's
says
do it.
the bucket is in a private cloud and ClickHouse Cloud is in its own cloud. What's the recommended way to connect? I assume that's talking about your S3 bucket and how you got that to connect. You'd used an access key, I think. Is that what you
Yeah, I use the
recommend?
private bucket with an access key. You can also
Okay.
decide to use an IAM role, which is actually the recommended way to do it. Define it on your on your Amazon Web Services IAM environment, give it the right permissions, and then this user will be used. From a networking perspective, right now I'm going through the public internet, but I rely on the fact that it's a TLS secure connection here
Okay.
with my credentials. If you have strong requirements around things like network isolation, there's the notion of reverse private link that we can use between ClickPipes and the remote data source, whether it's Kafka or anything else. So we have many means to do that we actually documented in our docs. So if you have any questions about that, just open a case. We can support your use case.
Now we got another question. So does this integrate with the AWS Secrets Manager?
To pull the credentials, probably, if I understand the question.
Yeah, so
No.
will this integrate with Secrets Manager in AWS for getting credentials?
No, the credentials are managed securely on the ClickHouse Cloud platform itself, but we don't provide any integration to third-party key stores or secrets manager at this stage. If you have feedback around this and if it's like a requirement in your field or your industry, we'll be really excited to hear more about it. It's actually the first time I hear about it, but who knows, probably there's more users requesting this.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's all the questions for now. So I guess you can.
We still have time
back
for
to
more
where you were.
questions. Let's try to do more ClickPipes now. So we have already 7.4 million records here. As you see, it's a continuous job. It keeps monitoring, and every minute it pulls new files. But in the meantime, let's see how the MSK experience look like. So let's call it Cloud Live MSK, this one. I have another set of credentials I can use for my MSK broker here. And this is the concept of consumer group proper to Kafka, and I need to provide an endpoint here. You can use schema registry if you rely on that with Avro, for example. I won't use it here because I'll use the schema inference provided by ClickPipes. And then the new thing we added to our Kafka integration is here. Let me select a topic. So I have this topic called Riyadh trips, which contains New York City trips data. But a feature that was actually highly requested by the users is the ability to control the offset from which we start. By default, we start with the oldest offset or the beginning offset. But now we have this controller here where you can decide if you want to be on the stream, like the latest, or a specific timestamp. And that's great for like replay scenarios. And that's one of, I guess, the flexibility that something like Kafka offers. So next is the same experience. We infer the data type here for my trips data. It's called Riyadh trips. The table, I'll just
Riyadh, I think the screen share might have turned off somehow. Maybe. At least I can't see it.
Okay, let me share again. Tells me that it's sharing on my end, but let me stop and do it again.
Oh, okay. Sorry, maybe it's just me. Some people are saying it's working for them. Okay, just ignore me then. I think we're good.
Thanks for helping with the demo, Mark. So here,
no, I can see it.
No worries,
weird.
no worries.
Anyway,
I'm kidding. Yeah. So yeah, here the New York City trips data is here. Same concept, permissions to the destination table only, full access. Again, the workflow is very, very straightforward, to be honest. And the idea is that we manage this complexity for you so you don't have to do it. And you don't have to think about like monitoring your pipelines, about managing your data, about like failover scenarios, scalability. Everything is metered, is scaled. So now this is provisioning. Now it's already running. We start like calling events from MSK. While it's doing that, let's do Kinesis just for fun. But now you get the idea, right? So it's actually the same concept. Kinesis defines slightly different constructs for the region, the credentials management, and things like that. But you'll see that the workflow is fairly similar. Everything is managed. You don't need to think too much about it. Kinesis, we don't talk about topics, we talk about streams, but again, the concepts are really similar. The starting offset is either earliest or latest in that case. Here I have cell towers data, a lot of numeric-based and timestamps. We can infer that fairly easily. By the way, we use ClickHouse own inference engine for that. We're not like inventing anything specific for ClickPipes. And let's give it permissions and complete the setup. So now we have 3 jobs that took like 5 minutes to declare. I had only 10,000 events in my MSK topic that I pulled already. It's fairly small. You can check basically the status. It's still running, waiting for more events. We track all the metrics here. This failover scenario is in place. We manage errors gracefully. We're not exposing scaling controls at the moment, like in the UI, but we have scaling capabilities that are right now require you to like request them through the support channel. So if your use case is latency sensitive, for example, we can do that for you. So just basically let us know once you use it, but very soon we'll be able to expose this in the UI and everything will be controllable. I think we ingested everything in that bucket, which was 7.4 million, but let me rerun my my S3 script that populates, so that will pick up more. While we're doing that, you see now that I have a bunch of tables that got created. The S3 demo is still here. My trips data is here, and cell towers, which is the latest one we ingested from MSK. So we can now ask random questions. For example, let me take this data set. There's a field called cap type. Cool feature in the SQL UI is our AI capabilities. So here we can basically ask our AI assistant to write queries. So I'll say, give me a count by cap type from Riyadh trips. It's just, if you're too lazy to write the SQL query, you can get some help with our AI capabilities. Apparently, all of them are yellow cabs in our data set, so not extremely interesting, but still, you get an idea. I'll pause here to see if there's any questions or if you want to see more of the UI, just please let me know.
We've kind of got 2 versions of a very similar question, which is, are there any plans to provide APIs to create ClickPipes instances programmatically, like kind of what you've been setting up? And then a variant of that question was, can you do this with a Terraform provider? Or I guess, will there be a plan to do that?
That's a great question. It's actually one of our highly requested features, the ability to kind of manage your ClickPipes as code. And I'm happy to say that it's coming this second half of the year. We don't have a clear ETA yet because there's like some dependencies on that feature, but you need to know something. ClickHouse Cloud has already an open API that you can use. There's a Swagger definition out there. We have docs page around it. So what we're doing is just extending it. So we're not inventing a new API or anything. Part of the existing ClickHouse Cloud API will create new endpoints that allow you to do the CRUD operations around your ClickPipes and then scale them out, monitor them, and everything you expect from this, and you'll be able to manage your configurations as code. One highly requested feature as well is the ability to like simply edit existing click pipes. Right now we don't have it, but we're working on it. That's why we introduced actually offset controls, which was a prerequisite for that. But very soon we'll have a kind of duplicate button here in this list where you can duplicate an existing one, so you don't have to fill everything again. So we're aware of these requirements. Please bear with us, they're coming. We just want to do it right. By the way, if you want to be design partners on these projects, please raise your hand. We always look for people who want to test them ahead of the release schedule. So we'll enable them for your organization specifically so that you can just evaluate the API ergonomics, how it works for you, and it helps us make sure we provide a meaningful feature.
Is that like the private preview program, or is it even before that?
Yeah, we don't formally refer to it as private preview, but it is
Okay.
a kind of private preview program where we work with a handful of design partners every time. We enable the feature only for them and then iterate with them until the feature settles, basically.
Cool. Okay, we got another question. Have you got so are the click pipes for Kafka and the Kafka table engine related? Like what is the click pipes for Kafka doing under the cover? Is it using the Kafka engine, or is it doing something else?
Another great question. So the way I like to describe of it is the difference is between like software and service, basically. So the click pipe, the ClickHouse table engine for Kafka, or the Kafka table engine for ClickHouse, sorry, is a software capability that comes with ClickHouse binary. You can run it by yourself, but it's pretty bare bones. It's great, actually. I like it for development purposes. When you're working locally on your instance, it really like helps streamlines the workflows and remove unnecessary components, etc. ClickPipes is built on very, very different foundations. It's actually designed as a scalable production grade kind of service. And behind the scene, it uses very different components. It's running in its own Kubernetes setup, independent from the rest of our cloud. It scales horizontally as well as vertically. It has some common foundations that allow us basically to ship all these connectors independently. They do actually share the same foundations underneath, and we customize only the top layer of it. And it's completely independent from the ClickHouse core code base, which allow us to basically release pretty fast. We're not tied to the release schedule of the server itself. It allows us to test new things, add components. It's written in a different programming language. It's not C++, so we have access to more APIs and extensibility, etc. So in that sense, I like to think of it as this is a service, and Kafka Table Engine is a software capability that you can use. They serve different purposes. If you find your happiness in the Kafka Table Engine, fine. If you need a service that's purely serverless, that's managed for you, that's monitored, highly available, etc., you don't want to run infrastructure for it, then probably ClickPipes is for you.
Cool. I've got another question, which is not on the Kafka, but back to the S3. So the question says, does it delete the files that have been read, like S3Q? So yeah, let's just leave out the S3Q. Like, does it delete the files once it's read them?
Nope, not in this version.
Okay.
We like to be iterative in the way we do things. So if this requirement is strong and it comes back, we can include it. Right now, we don't want to ask for extended permissions on the buckets. We want read and list permissions. That's the reason why we didn't want to really explore these capabilities, because from like a security perspective, we are more confident if the users you provide to us is list and read only type of user. But if we feel like some of our users need this capability, then we'd be happy to explore deleting the files. By the way, I haven't mentioned that, but something different that's really different from the S3 capabilities we have in core is that the initial batch ingest, or all the ingest actually, is done in 2 steps in ClickPipes for S3. We first ingest the file in a staging table. That's not your destination table. And you cannot see it because we hide these tables actually from the SQL console. But if you use your terminal, you'll be able to see them. So think of it as like next to my destination table here, S3D mode is like 10 other staging tables that we use to ingest the files into, and then we move the partitions behind the scene. The reason we do that actually is to provide a kind of notion of transaction there, so that we have an atomic moment where, okay, we know that the file has been ingested, and we never leave the destination table in a partial state. And that's a very flexible way to ingest data. We tested it at scale actually on 400 terabytes data sets, and it performs pretty well. The move partition in ClickHouse is an atomic operation, so we rely on that. And it's also like a very different kind of setup designed for scale and batch data loading.
So we've got to follow up to the previous question, which is when you're using the click pipes for S3, is there a way that you can see which of the files from your bucket have been ingested?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. We have a mode where we can log the kind of journal of what happened in a sidecar table as well. Same way we log the errors and the malformed data there. And we are working on an improvement there. Basically, you'll notice here that I've launched 3 jobs, but I end up with 6 tables because like each one has this sidecar table. And the power users of ClickPipes complained a bit about this, which makes sense because you have to maintain all of these and think about it, etc. So what we are doing right now is consolidate all the ClickPipes logging capabilities in a single table that will reside in the system's database, not in your user database. So system database, for those who not aware, is a technical database in ClickHouse where we store all kind of the system information. So the query log, your users, anything basically, dictionaries you use. This is like technical data and a lot of logging data. And we'll have a ClickPipes log in there. We're working on it. It's something that's scheduled for this quarter, actually, that will allow us to provide a cleaner experience. And in there, you'll be able to find the list of the files you processed and things like that.
I feel like every time we get another question. So here's one more. So so far we've looked at using ClickPipes to put data into ClickHouse. Is there a way to use ClickPipes, or is there a plan to use ClickPipes where you could like send the data out to one of the other integrations like that you showed on the integrations page? I don't know, let's say send it out to Kafka, for example, a different topic.
Yeah, so it's a Kafka table engine capability. Actually, the Kafka table engine can do bidirectional communication with the broker. It's not the way ClickPipes is designed, to be honest. If you want to think about ClickPipes, it's really like an ETL service that knows to write to ClickHouse Cloud. So we kind of capitalize on the fact that we know how to write to ClickHouse very well, and we then extend that with connectors. But the direction is always from the remote data source to the ClickHouse Cloud service it's associated with, and that's what gives us all this flexibility and this scalability and all the kind of features we're after. We're not really interested in the other way around because it opens a rabbit hole of like permissions management. We'll then have to store users that have extended permissions on the third-party systems. We'll have to have the right level of network isolation, etc. There's many ways to achieve the other direction. You can use a third-party component. You can trigger materialized views that write to HTTP endpoint. You can like there's like a plethora of ways where you can implement that. We don't feel like ClickPipe is the right way to do it. If you want to think about ClickPipes, it's really like unidirectional ETL capabilities for ClickHouse.
Cool.
Right?
Yeah, that's all the questions for now. So I'll let you carry on.
Thank you very much for having me. That was it actually for me. I think I displayed with that 3 ways how to do it, the different screens we have, the different setups. We spoke briefly about the roadmap. Just real quick on the connector support. The next thing that's coming here for us are we're opening a kind of new family of connectors after streaming, after object storage. We're looking into databases right now. It's a highly requested feature. Change data capture always comes as a requirement now in many of the use cases we see in the wild. So the new logos we'll see in this screen will try to address that. We're heads down working on these types of connectors, which are slightly more involved, to be honest, compared to like streaming and object storage. But yeah, expect us there. If you have a use case around change data capture, as always, feel free to reach out to us. We're always welcome feedback. And thanks for listening to me.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks, thanks, Riyad, for presenting that. And obviously, thanks, Gareth, for explaining us the Cloud Console as well. If we've still got about 4 minutes left, so if anybody else has any other questions that we haven't, well, Riyad's covered a lot of questions in that bit, so that was good. But yeah, if you've got any other ones, now is your chance. Otherwise, you'll just have to ask them as text. Kelly, you got sorry, go on.
We've got 2 other questions in the pipe. So Jack asks if there is a separate cost to using ClickPipes, or is it the same as loading data through another mechanism?
Another great question. So as of now, we don't charge anything for ClickPipes. We released the feature in September last year, and while we kind of are extending the catalog of connectors and building out the feature actively, we didn't feel like it's the right thing to do to like charge anything for it yet until we really settle on the infrastructure. It incur an indirect cost, obviously, because you're ingesting. So basically, you're using resources from your destination service to do that. So it will generate some compute and storage load on your destination service. However, we are thinking of introducing some kind of pricing model on ClickPipes in the long term. It's not set in stone yet in terms of what dimensions, but as always, it will be fairly competitive because we're not first in the ETL business. We're like a database. We're not like here to move data. We provide this as a kind of extension of our core service. So we'll keep you posted there. Please expect some comms, and if you're interested or your use case requires like specific kind of scale and latency requirements, we can work with you towards that.
Cool. And then I think I had one which I didn't when we were talking about extending the API for creating ClickPipes. The follow-up question, which I forgot to ask, was would there be a way to like do something with Terraform? I don't know whether that would integrate with the API, or I'm not sure how that would work. I don't know Terraform enough, but
yes, we track that as 2 separate items. So the public API specification is already scheduled and on track. Extending the ClickHouse Cloud Terraform provider should be straightforward, to be honest. So I expect it to be kind of a fast follower thing that will come as a direct result of having an open API. So yes, but not exactly at the same time.
We got another one. Does ClickPipe only ingest data as append only, or do we need to use the replacing merge tree to get, if you want to keep the latest record?
Yeah, so if you want to think about the deduplication problem at scale, the only scalable way to do it is to rely on ClickHouse eventual consistency model, which is basically replacing merge tree or collapsing merge tree, all these like merge tree family tables that can deal with deduplication asynchronously. So the answer is yes. If you want to deduplicate your data, well, ClickPipes will provide at least once semantic in its correct form, depending on the failure scenario and how we replay. We guarantee that we deliver the data at least once, but in some cases, we can introduce duplicates, or the duplicates can be in the data itself. In that case, as always with ClickHouse, replacing merge tree is the way to go. It's actually a very powerful model and is probably the only scalable model out there where you kind of defer the duplication workload to later during the merge process. And you still have the flexibility to use the final keyword if you need exact results in the meantime. By the way, final keyword performance in ClickHouse has been improved quite a lot in the last 2 quarters. I don't know if you followed the updates there, but now it's way faster to run queries with the final modifier.
Okay, we've got one more. And I guess we're almost at time. So let's try this one. So related to second demos, MSK and Kafka, for the schema registry, are there plans or timelines to start supporting multiple schemas in the same Kafka topic? And then the next bit is Confluent Avro embedded the schema ID within the message itself, so the base URL of the registry could be enough. I don't know. Hopefully you can decipher that.
Yeah, I can start with the second one. It's slightly easier. So the second one, you're correct. Right now, we request an URL with the schema ID, but we have a fix coming to tweak a bit the UX around schema registry, and we'll be able to discover the schema ID automatically, so we don't have to provide it. It was the first iteration, so we had to put something out there, but I agree we can improve this experience. You don't need to know about your schema IDs. We can actually hide this complexity for you. So good catch on this one. And the other question was about multiple schema registries for the same topic, right?
Yeah, multiple schemas in the same topic, yeah.
Yeah, we don't yet have plans to support this. Actually, it's the first time I hear about this requirement, so I'm actually curious to hear more about it. I haven't met a user yet that uses different schemas with the same topic. I usually recommend users to kind of segregate on the different topics if they can. But if this is a common use case in your space, your industry, we'll be happy to look into it. So my email is my first name @clickhouse.com. So just drop me a note.
Yeah, or if not, if you've joined on Zoom, you can always reply. I guess we'll do a follow-up with the actual link to it, so you can always reply that. Otherwise, I think we're probably about time to wrap up. So yeah, thanks to all of you for coming to watch, and thanks to Riyadh and Gareth and Kelly for shepherding all our questions in the background and getting us the answers to some of them. We're probably going to be doing these sort of every 2-3 months, so kind of a bit more frequent than what we've been doing before. And I don't think we've decided our next topic, but it'll be sometime September, October, so into the autumn. So yeah, I guess have a good summer for those of you in the north, and hopefully it's as warm as it is in Prague. Otherwise, yeah, thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you on the next one.